Hey everyone, how's it going? So I wanted to talk about the CRM and why I do think that The Walking Dead sort of failed the CRM. Now, I don't think, in the long run that it's going to be seen as a failure if they do handle certain things differently, going forward. Like in the finale, Beale mentioned a lot of things in terms of he has spies out there in the world and all of that. So I think that, there's places where you can make the CRM story still really matter. But a very, very popular opinion right now seems to be that, that they kind of failed the CRM story. Like, yes, the Rick and Michonne story was told, amazingly. If you actually just focus on that aspect to the series, they did that right. But I also think in terms of doing that you probably shouldn't have ended the CRM story in that way because it was hyped up for years and it just, you needed a little bit more there. Maybe an extra episode or two, to focus on Beale or just something like that. So yeah, we'll talk about this here. So before we go any further, obviously make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all of my Walking Dead content like this. Now, like I was saying, the CRM story was hyped up for years and not every aspect to it failed. So I do want to clarify that. Not every aspect to the CRM story failed. The Ones Who Live is a really amazing show. And I really do want to say that the finale for me, I rated like a 5 out of 10. It's been a couple of days. Maybe I would say it's a 5 or 6 out of 10, somewhere around there. The series as a whole, I would say, is definitely like an 8 out of 10. I'd probably rate it about there. Like, really phenomenal series, really amazing episodes. And I think that, Rick and Michonne's return and just the story it told there was really, really incredible. Like, incredible. But the finale, I think this is why this show probably needed 8 episodes or maybe even 10. And that's been sort of a common complaint with these spinoffs is that the stories are ending too fast. Like, there's a lot of stuff that's not being explored and a lot of things are just sort of being assumed with the story and just like rushed through, right? So I do think an extra episode or two, like if you just did 8 episodes or even 10, like 10 at the most, but if that's too much and maybe just like 8 episodes, then I think a lot of fans would have been happy because you could have done an extra episode, focused more on, I guess, a lot more drama and fighting at the CRM and sort of taking that base down, not just doing it all within 10 to 15 minutes, just have a whole episode focused on that. And then an extra one focused on Beale and exploring more, just stuff there between him and Rick. I think people would have felt like that was told really epically. And then maybe the final scene with, Rick and Michonne reuniting with their kids, maybe it's a little bit longer than like 2 minutes. Maybe it's closer to like 5 minutes, right? Like you just get a little bit more there. But again, the CRM story, the reason why people are so disappointed about this is because the CRM story was hyped up for years. And again, not every aspect to it failed, but certain aspects seem to be very like grand in scale. And it really set up this whole universe and that failed. And yeah, the universe, in terms of the end game scenario and all that can still happen, right? It's going to be a little different than we thought because the CRM won't be villains. Obviously, they're going to be more on Rick's side, but they still will be a part of it because Denai Guerrera's comments on like, where the story would go next, hypothetically is, they would have an obligation to sort of live out their home and family life. But she said that there's also a part to it where they do need to help out the CRM and help out people because that is who they are, right? So I think that's probably what they would focus on next. But still, I think regardless of all of that, I think fans do feel like they did fail the CRM arc. And I've seen a lot of people say that, it doesn't really matter because the story was about Rick and Michonne. And yes, I do understand that. Like, The Ones Who Live is about Rick and Michonne, but I just feel like if that was the case, maybe you shouldn't have ended the CRM arc right in this season then, right? And ended it so fast like that. And if you were going to end it in this season, maybe do an extra episode, just to sort of explore that a little bit more, give an episode to Beale because he was a character that was hyped up for a long time. And no, it wasn't just in fans' heads, that he was like this big Thanos-like villain. It seemed like that's where they were going with that. But if that wasn't the case, maybe instead just still give him more screen time than what he got because he really didn't get a lot of screen time. So again, the CRM, they're probably not going to be villains. I do think in some way that they still will, like in terms of Beale's spies and all of that. But, I think the next villains are probably going to be something new, or there is Madame Genet and there's the whole Triple P card and what that is, right? Like, I don't know if those are like a secret group within the CRM or something like that. Like, that could be maybe related, or maybe the next story is like variant walkers and they swarm America and all of that, right? Like, maybe that's what Daryl Dixon is setting up here. So that's all possible. But the original hype of the CRM, it's been disappointing. And, a lot of people are saying, well, fans just built it up in their heads and it really is just, it's nothing more than that. It was never going to be that big. You got to remember, they've been teasing this story for a long time, and it was even before Jadis showed up, right? The letter A was always sort of a thing that was always around, going back to season 4 and the train cards. Like, there would just be this letter that would show up here and there. There was like helicopters that would sort of be around, right? And that was a tease to this story here, to eventually what happened, right? The CRM just seemed like a threatening villain. We had so many questions about like what all of this meant. And I think the inability to escape, it was just so exciting. And as soon as Rick left and he was gone there for years, it was just kind of like, it was amazing to kind of see that. And again, The Ones Who Live did do that right in the first episode, which I think now is my favorite episode. Looking back at all 6 episodes, episode 1 really is my favorite, I would say, because it really focused on what Rick went through over those years. And it was honestly really incredible to see, just because that was a story that we were all so excited to get, right? So I look at that and I'm like, yeah, that was all really amazing there. But it is also just kind of insane when you think of all of that. When you think of how much they built up the CRM, when you really look at like, the fact that they would show up in Fear the Walking Dead, and the secrecy behind them, and the fact that you don't escape. And if you find out like who they are, if they see you, you're basically done, right? Like there was so much there. And somehow the second, Michonne shows up, all of a sudden Rick and Michonne are able to escape. And that's sort of my issue with it, is like, I get it. When you look at what happened, it does make sense. Like they just jumped out of a helicopter, and maybe there was going to be issues there. And the helicopter, yeah, conveniently went into a building, but I'll ignore all of that. That's fine. My point is, it's more of in the finale, the fact that they were just able to like go in there and like there was no questions about a lot of it. Beale just believed Rick. Everyone just believed what they said, right? Like Rick just said this and that. There was no questions about anything. Michonne somehow got into the CRM as well. Like she went in, like she jumped over the fence and all of that. And like, again, this place is supposed to be top secret and everything. And I don't know, that part about it does bug me, considering how everything ended here. And like the whole dossier thing really, it was sort of an issue, but like Michonne basically went in there. She got in, she didn't really have any trouble getting into the CRM. And then she found it right away, ripped it up, and that was done. And it was just so fast. Like there was no struggle for any of our characters almost the entirety of the season. Like if you really look at it, yes, there was some stuff in episodes 1 and 2, but that was basically it. Afterwards, they found each other and they were basically able to escape when no one's supposed to escape, right? Like you actually just had them literally jump out of the helicopter. They escaped. They went through all their stuff. Yes, Jadis showed up, so there's a little bit of a problem, but they dealt with that. And then they went back to get the dossier and all of that. And that happened so easily. Like they got all of that done, and then they destroyed the CRM. Like there was, it just happened too fast, too easily, too quick. And it just sort of underwhelms what the CRM were supposed to be. And that's why I don't really like the whole aspect to it where, Rick and Michonne, like once they're together, they can do anything. Like I don't like that, because it's very fairy tale like, right? Like just them together, they can really conquer the entire world. And that is just sort of, I feel like, against what The Walking Dead has always been, which is, it's been a struggle in like reality. And I don't know, I'm just not a fan of that. It just became something that The Walking Dead really wasn't. And I do understand though, in terms of, future stories being told within a CRM. So like in a season 2, focusing on the CRM again, and if they were still villains and all of that, having our characters not able to leave, that definitely would have been very repetitive. And I don't know how you have all of them together. Like if Morgan shows up and all of that, how would you have them all together at the CRM, not able to escape and all of that? And you know what I mean? Like they would have to constantly leave. And so I do think that aspect to the story, it was kind of hard to write with that. So I do get that. So, in the next story, whatever they do, yeah, I get why, maybe ending this CRM in some sense or changing that part to it, does matter. But I feel like Major General Beale is, the big focus of a lot of this as well, because he was someone that was teased to be a really big villain. But I also think that, they did view The Ones Who Live as like this epic event to answer all of those questions. And I think that if that were to be the case, then they probably should have done 8 episodes or like 10 instead of the 6, right? Because I think 6 episodes is too little. And the story ends up being very rushed. And you could see this happening in Daryl Dixon, Dead City as well. Certain aspects of the world just not being fleshed out enough. And I think, it's definitely, I would say, like those spinoffs aren't as bad as The Ones Who Live's final episode. That definitely was very, very rushed, but you still do need more stories here. I feel like with what they did before with 16 episodes, it was too much, I would say, in terms of you would get very, very slow episodes, but I think they went too far to the other side where it was, it's not enough episodes. So I think 8 episodes for me would be absolutely perfect, maybe 10. Like World Beyond, honestly, those 10 episodes were perfect. Like in my opinion, like 10 episodes to tell everything there. I really liked how, it was structured. Like I don't like the story that much, but in terms of how the story was structured and all that, yeah, I really liked those 10 episodes. Like 10 episodes per season for that show worked really well. And I think the reason why this hurt the CRM arc a lot is because, again, Major General Beale had no screen time really, and Jadis was sort of the bigger villain, right? And like I kind of get it if maybe Jadis was, always meant to die here, and like that's fine, but maybe don't kill off Major General Beale yet. Maybe just do something differently here with the story. I don't know. The way they did it definitely was just disappointing. And also he kind of pointed out something that was like kind of insane that I feel like is going to be something that we bring up forever, which is that humanity has 14 years left, right? And he got that because of his scientists, right? So imagine if he ends up being right. Like, what did Rick just do to everybody, right? So I think that, honestly, when you look at the episode, it is fine generally until Beale's death. I think Michonne, again, getting the dossier and all of that too easily, sneaking into that place so easily as well. I think a lot of that's really ridiculous, but ignore all of that. To me, I think after Beale's death, from that point until the end of the episode was way too rushed, because I felt like Major General Beale's speech and, just his discussion or conversation, I guess, with Rick in that scene was something that we all wanted. And it was just like, oh, this is really amazing. We're finally getting what we wanted, and that was it though. And not only that, like 10 minutes after Beale dies, they basically destroy the entirety of the Civic Republic's frontliners and everyone else, like Rick and Michonne and Pearl Thorne, by the way, somehow survived this massive explosion, despite people being farther away from them and in buildings dying, right? So I don't know how they survived that. I know I've been seeing people trying to defend that. To me, it's plot armor. It's really that simple. Honestly, it doesn't have to be that big of an issue. There's plot armor in shows. It happens all the time. The only reason why I'm bringing it up is because of how rushed it was. If it was more epic in scale and all these things sort of built up to this and that and whatever, then if it ended in the same way, it wouldn't necessarily be that big of an issue, but it's just because of how fast everything happens. And also, what was the point of the CRM summit? They wanted to build this whole place here, and they were having this big event that they never really addressed. It was just like, that was it. Like, we just saw them giving a speech, and everyone was sort of lined up there, but they never really addressed what it was at all, and it just, like, they all died right away. Like, you're not going to have any security around the chlorine gas and all of that. Like, that didn't really make a lot of sense. So, again, I just think that for a lot of people, it makes sense why the CRM arc was, I think, a failure kind of overall. I think they can fix it, and there could be some aspects to it that are still exciting. It didn't ruin the Walking Dead universe, and I guess I should clarify that. It didn't ruin the Walking Dead universe at all. It just it failed that arc. And I'll always look at the CRM arc as just like, it should have mattered more, and there should have been a lot more to it. And it was definitely very, very underwhelming and very, very disappointing. And so, again, the CRM is not entirely gone. They're good now, and according to Denai Guerrera's comments regarding, what would come next for the characters, hypothetically, she says, right, like, because obviously there's no confirmation of a season 2, but hypothetically, they would feel an obligation to still helping out the CRM and helping out people and all of that, while also balancing like a home family life and all of that. So I think that is where a season 2 would start, and I think that is a way to keep the CRM alive in some way. I think Gimple probably expected some of the fan reaction to this stuff, and I think that's why, he introduced the fact that Beale has spies throughout the world and all of that. And I think that's why the Triple P card and stuff never came up. He introduced some of those ideas there, but never got into it enough, because I feel like, yeah, he wants to save those for something new, probably because, Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera really wanted to end, a lot of the CRM story here in this season. So I think for him, that was probably very smart. But again, I don't really know that. I'm just kind of assuming. But if that was the case, I think that is pretty smart there. So I think the only hope that we have now in terms of, fixing the CRM arc and making it seem, like it was sort of the start of something really cool, I think it's just, where are Beale's spies, right? Like, who is a spy? Whether that's Lance, I mean, it doesn't really matter because he's dead, but Lance could be a spy, right? Beale mentioned that, they were worldwide, so I feel like there are going to be some in France, and yeah, you could do something really amazing here. But again, I guess to end the video, you can't help but feel like the whole hype of everything, going back years and years and years, going back seasons, like going back to season 7 and even before that, of the CRM arc and all of that, you just can't help but feel like disappointed, I guess, at the fact that it was just told so fast. And again, if they wanted to end it here in The Ones Who Live, I think that's fine, but it's just how fast everything happened, and also sort of how small scale the setting felt at the CRM summit. It really did feel like that. Episode 1, in terms of the scale of that episode, really felt way more massive. It really felt like the CRM were really like this really huge organization, and just in terms of how they ended everything there at the CRM, it was like a small base, and it was so easy to do it. We'll have to wait and see what they do next with the CRM and all of that. But yeah, definitely for me, it was a disappointment. And I do see a lot of people feeling the same, but Post all your thoughts down below. Hope you guys all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.